Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 2CTV with your latest update from British politics and the UK government, specifically Keir Starmer's cabinet, those who are actually calling the shots. And of course, we're going to go through all the information we have, get your reaction live if you're watching this live, obviously. Just realized, obviously, we haven't really updated from the last video. It's been a bit of a busy day with everything that's been going on around us. Let's talk about what we know in regards to this issue. Before we begin, just a quick reminder, if you want to get more out of this channel, make sure to join 2CTV Plus by going on 2c.tv. You'll get 1 month free if you join on an annual basis. You get access to premium shows, documentaries. We have a new show coming up tomorrow, I believe. And also, we're still working on the app, which will be absolutely beautiful, in the words of Donald Trump. Now, if you believe that Keir Starmer, and well, any prime minister that we would have right now is actually in charge, you will be mistaken. If you believe that government ministers actually call the shots, you will be mistaken. Faceless bureaucracy in this country is on steroid right now. But it's not just about the bureaucrats, it's not just about civil servants. The vested interest are very much involved when it comes to lobby groups, when it comes to big money, when it comes to corporations, when it comes to certain campaign groups who have links to either politicians or civil servants or both. And in the specific live stream, we're going to talk about Labour government, but also one specific government minister and his department. Big shout out to all those, obviously, who helped with this research, including My Dad Was a Toolmaker account on X. Love the name, by the way. Let's start. We're giving us some information. For a lot of you who do your research, is not really that much of a surprise, but a lot of people are not really informed about what's actually going on a regular basis in politics. Let's start by talking about the Secretary of State for Net Zero, or Nuts Zero, as I call it, Ed Miliband. Ed Miliband, the brother of David Miliband, he's the one who stabbed his own brother in the back in 2010 to become a Labour Party leader. But obviously he failed in 2015 to beat David Cameron's Conservatives. He disappeared for a while. Ed Miliband came back with a new friendship that he had with Greta Thunberg, who at the time was about 16 years old, 17, whatever she was. I think she was 16. And Ed Miliband obviously found his new calling, which was net zero. And now he's in charge of that department. Energy security, net zero, important, right? It's all linked to all the other groups. This is where it gets interesting. Jeremy Pocklington, CB, is the permanent secretary at the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, or DESNZ. So essentially, Jeremy is the person in charge of the department. If you think that the actual minister is in charge, he's not. It's always the permanent secretaries heading the department. They're in charge of the daily stuff. And obviously, the minister's job is to come up with policies, but it's not even him, because they have advisors. They will tell Miliband to come up with a policy after having meetings with lobby groups. Most of the time, the ministers just nod, and people like Jeremy will actually do things. But that's not the interesting part, because this is obvious. You know, obviously, you've got the permanent secretary. But Jeremy has a brother called Nigel Pocklington. This is where the links get deeper and deeper. Because Nigel is the CEO of the Good Energy Group. Good. Very good, guys, right? But what is his actual interests? Nigel sits on many green energy companies, but is also the CEO, obviously, of this energy group, PLC, public company. Many of his subsidiaries show huge tax losses, which is typical where companies try to hide their profit. It's a 28.1% currently owned by Ecotricity PLC, which is controlled by Dale Vince. Now, this is where it escalates, because it's all about the connections that you have from the minister to the permanent secretary to his brother, and it goes back to, yes, Dale Vince. Now, some of you are already familiar with Dale Vince. He's an absolutely crazy nutter. He's an eco-militant activist. He's currently busy fighting on behalf of the Islamists, the Palestinian side. He's wearing a keffiyeh, obviously. Cultural appropriation, by the way, Dale. And he's also been very much proactive. Publicly, he's been coming out in recent years to criticize and attack both main parties, even Labour. But privately, he's been working with them quite closely, telling them what to do, giving them a lot of money. Now, a few days ago, we discovered that Dale Vince gave the Labour Party millions of pounds in order to reduce the payout to his ex-wife in his divorce. He obviously also bankrolled the Just Stop Oil organization. Now, Just Stop Oil is technically, you can and you should classify them at this point as a domestic terrorist organization. Up to a point where the government, all governments that we've had, and the main parties cannot publicly support Just Stop Oil. Even the Labour government can't do it. But Dale Vince was part of it. Also part of the Labour Party, Labour government. And it gets worse. Because what we've had, the influence of the Green lobby, a few days ago, we got the confirmation that the government will be bailing out investors. These are the plans to save, as they said, 300 wind turbine factory jobs. That's what they tell the public, by the way. It's very quietly, but that's what they tell the public. They are bailing out failed companies who are part of the net zero project and the World Economic Forum mission, are using your money, if you're watching this from Britain, to do this. There have been a number of articles exposing this as well. On the 8th of December this year, David Turver said government subsidy transparency database is now showing that at least £328 billion of active schemes for net zero and energy-related subsidies is still ongoing. The whole thing is a scam. They're all failing. They're using your money to keep them alive. Why? Because of the other vested interest, the international side. So let's look at another individual who's an advisor to Keir Starmer and even the SNP government in Scotland. This is Mariana Mazzucato. Now, she's written books. The Mission Economy, right? This is where it gets interesting. I'm going to show you a few seconds of her rant. She seems high. She seems a little, I don't know, nothing that she says makes any sense. Let's go to Mariana, then I'm going to explain who she is and what her connections are.
Solutions. What a mission approach does is it begins with a challenge, take the water challenge, turns it into a mission. For example, making sure that no child dies due to the fact they don't have access to clean drinking water, and then breaks down that problem into all sorts of different solutions that are required across different sectors. So from a challenge to a mission and a moonshot to an intersectoral.
It's like listening to Kamala Harris. There's a lot of words, not much meaning. But this is where it gets weirder and weirder. Who is she? Mariana is the agenda contributor for the World Economic Forum, or the WEF. When you look at her profile on the World Economic Forum's website, she's a professor at the University College London, UCL, and she's the professor in the economics of innovation and public value, right? Where she's the founding director of the UCL Institute for Innovation and Public Purpose, whatever that means. She's winner of international prizes, guys. Many prizes. She's also the author of The Entrepreneurial State, Debunking Public versus Private Sector Myths, because they don't believe in private sector. They want a mixed private sector and public sector. That's the point of the corporate globalism. It's essentially an international version of what Mussolini did in Italy. Mussolini took control of the companies, businesses, brought them into the corporate state. So essentially he eliminated free market capitalism, but he said we have corporatism now, but the government will decide. Essentially what's happening in China. The CCP is not really a communist state anymore. They are politically a communist state, but economically they are like the Italian fascists. They're a corporatist state. And the World Economic Forum, guys, they are that, but on an international level. China is a national level. Mussolini's Italy was on a national level. These guys are on an international level. And that's what the whole point of their agenda is. But it's not really just about her. Because in the same video, she also had others being featured in it. Including, yes, Mia Mottley is the Prime Minister of Barbados. Now, why does a Prime Minister of Barbados actually matters? She's also very much a proactive member of the World Economic Forum, because they know what sort of opportunities they can use as smaller players on the global stage by being connected to individuals like Mariana who have links to other governments. So she advises the SNP government in Scotland, Keir Starmer's government in Westminster, but also can connect all these guys together so they don't have to go to Davos once a year. They can still do it throughout the year and everything else. But the biggest problem we currently have, for example, when you go to Muttley's screenshot that I showed you, she's wearing a badge. That badge is the "you will own nothing, but you will be happy," right? And, you know, someone said people wearing this badge are destroying your future. They are quite open and proud about this. You will own nothing and you will be happy. That's obviously, they've been saying this since 2020 when Klaus Schwab, the head of the World Economic Forum, wrote the book about the Great Reset. And he was very proud of his work. And the idea was to take advantage of what happened with COVID, the China virus, to then reshape the whole global economies and everything else. Bring everything more, make it more centralized, to be able to manage things easier. But they're not really transparent. They're not really democratic. They are publicly saying, no, we still believe in democracies and sovereignty of each nation. They can have their own flag. Yeah, sure. And they have prime ministers and presidents. They don't really care about that. Because the prime ministers that we have, they're not actually in charge. Now, not in a Illuminati way, not in some sort of lizards from Mars, but they are not in charge because they haven't been in charge for a long time, for decades, even in this country. Again, if you watch the TV show Yes Minister or Yes Prime Minister, which was a comedy, but actually it was based on reality anyway. That wasn't really, basically that was about the fact that civil service runs the show. That was always been the case since the 20th century. But when that was happening, the international side, people like Klaus Schwab and others, George Soros and many others, and all the corporations, you can't blame them because they can see an opportunity. The opportunity was there. They look at, for example, the UK government, they say, okay, so who runs the show? Is it the palace? Is it the king? No, it's not the king anymore. Is it the prime minister? Do you elect the prime ministers? No, we don't actually elect the prime ministers. We elect MPs. They come up with someone as party leader. They become prime minister. Okay, so do they run the actual government? Not necessarily, the civil servants do. And they say, okay, that's interesting. So we have all these conferences now. The World Economic Forum. We have annual conferences. We can bring people from different businesses, different sectors, and we could bring their permanent secretaries, the civil servants. They could come, and all the other lobby groups. Then we could actually come up with ideas on behalf of these countries and people, and then you can go back to Westminster and tell your prime minister what we discussed and what new policy we have. And they said, that's a good idea. Make things more efficient, centralize all the ideas. So you don't even have to have the prime minister going to Davos for it to be an issue. So for those who get like, sometimes people get upset, like, oh, our prime minister has just gone to Davos. That's a betrayal. He shouldn't have gone. It doesn't matter if the prime minister goes or doesn't. It's not really about the prime minister. It's just the face. The advisors are already making the decisions anyway. And then they fund Ed Miliband. And Ed Miliband, who also has his own vested interest in terms of shares and stocks and everything else. And even civil servants who are supposed to be impartial, you know, their brothers and sisters and whatever, their neighbors, are connected. It's legitimizing the mafia. That's all it is. It's white-collar mafia. Organized crime. But they've legalized it. That's the point. I hope this was informative. Let's get some reaction from you guys. We got Ivan, thank you very much. Saying, wait, Starmer isn't running the country? Next, you will tell me Santa isn't real. This is why I always say when people get angry at Starmer, I can't believe Starmer did. It's not him doing it. You know, yeah, he's the face of the show. He's the representative. But people need to start scrutinizing, for example, permanent secretaries of departments. And by people, I'm talking about MPs. But our MPs right now in Parliament are a little bit cuckoo. If you had good MPs, yes, there are a few good ones these days, a few. But if you have more good MPs doing their jobs properly, they have select committees. Select committees are there to scrutinize the government and the state and also anybody externally. Instead of inviting government ministers like Ed Miliband to the select committee, stop doing that. Invite the permanent secretary, the head of civil service in that department. They do it every now and then, depending on what the select committee is. But no, do it. If you actually want transparency, if you actually want democracy, that's what you have to do. They're not going to do it. Firstly, the MPs don't care. They don't care. They get their status. They get their gravy trains. They are happy with this arrangement, as Dominic Cummings said before. They are happy with the arrangement. They know how the game works. And anybody who wants to come and break it up, they will get... Dominic Cummings was one of them. They got rid of him. Liz Truss was another one. You don't have to love Liz Truss or agree with everything that she was doing or even her personality. But she tried. They got rid of her. Musa says, there is a Unite the Kingdom Free Tommy rally on the 1st of February in London. Will you be going? Yes, 2CTV will be there. This was organised by our team, the Unite the Kingdom team. They do a great job. And we shall see you guys there. Cynthia says, this is your real incest problem. All the members of the government in bed with big, rich corporations. Big Pharma runs the US, but not for long. So, again, the problem is not necessarily companies as a business, as a concept, because you need businesses, you need companies, and you need businesses to succeed to become bigger. It's that toxic relationship, the link between big government and big business. You need to cut that off. And obviously Trump, Vivek, Elon, they're trying to do that in the US. There's nothing wrong with having big businesses, although it becomes harder for you if you have a big business, because as I always say, size matters. Small is better than big with everything. Smaller house is easier to manage than a big house. Smaller business is easier to manage than a big business. Smaller government is easier to manage than a big government. Everything, when it comes to these sort of things, small is better than big. But big is also sometimes is desirable because it brings more opportunities, more jobs, and more obviously profit. There's nothing wrong with it. You have to get big. 2CTV, if you have an opportunity going forward, gradually, organically, this will hopefully get big. But there's a difference between size and the culture of that company. And Cynthia is right, because the issue is not necessarily that they are rich corporations. It's that they are in bed with government. That relationship needs to be cut off completely. And you can do it. You have to reframe the constitutions and the legislations you have in the countries, and by exposing them. That's why we try our best, not just to expose government ministers or MPs, but actually those who are really calling the shots, who are really holding power, which are the philanthropists, for example, like Bill Gates, or the corporations who go and pretend that they are representing everybody from that industry, but they're not. They're not. Andrew says, except for penis. Yeah. Size matters. Small is good, apart from that. Yeah. Ivan says, so the WEF run our country. Yeah, no, but not as an entity itself. Because again, they what they wanted, and they've done it for the past few years. They've managed to trick people. They managed to get you guys and everybody to think, there we go, let's give them a distraction. The distraction tactic was, we have the website, World Economic Forum, we have the annual conference, Davos. Let's get people to be angry at that. Let's get people to be angry at the logo, WEF. Let's get them to be distracted with that, while we actually have the actual faceless individuals and meetings calling the shots. I mean, it's not even, for example, Bilderberg. Bilderberg is already there. Bilderberg is open that it exists, but they don't take the minutes. You don't know what actually they discuss. So they want you to be angry at your prime minister, like Starmer. They want you to be angry at the World Economic Forum. So you say WEF is running. It's not necessarily the WEF itself. It's obviously those who are linked to the forum, which is the World Economic Forum. But as long as you keep saying, I hate the WEF or I hate the Prime Minister, that's exactly what they want. Because you're not digging deeper. You're not actually saying, but who? You're just shouting at a logo. You're just shouting at the website. That's exactly what they want. People, when they start asking more questions, that is the whole point. The world economy is essentially, it's a building. Well, it's not a building itself, but metaphorically, it's a building. Metaphorically, there's a table. So currently, you're shouting at the table, at the building, at the meeting room. It's the actual individuals who do this. That is the whole point. So they wanted to keep it being distracted, saying WF runs the government, but it goes beyond that. Ivan's still right. I'm not insulting what you said, by the way. I'm just saying the framing. You have to rephrase the sentencing. They wanted to just be distracted with the wording of it. The UK, don't be Canada. That was always a good advice. Don't be like Canada, who has a tyrannical government removing the citizens' rights to bear arms. Yeah, but it's already happened here. We've already lost our rights a long time ago. The issue that we have is when you get certain big corporations or CEOs or lobby groups on behalf of an industry calling the shots. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I always use the example of the supermarket industry, right? The grocery industry in general. So you have the local shops, corner shops in your area, small business, family run. Then you've got the big chains, Walmart in the UK, Tesco, Sainsbury's, and all the others, right? The issue is not just the fact that, for example, Walmart or Sainsbury's would go to government and say, we represent everybody from this sector, so can we do this? So they promote more regulations and more taxes. They want more regulations, they want more taxes. That's what big businesses want. Because what that does, because they can always afford expensive lawyers and accountants. They get away with it, they find a loophole. But that small family-run business, they are completely effed. Because they're like, so more regulations, more red tape, more taxes, how do we not pay? We have to. And HMRC and the feds in America, they would go and knock on the door, take the money. That's not really the main problem. The other issue that we have is that they also give suggestions, the big supermarkets, for example, and it's not really just the actual supermarkets, it's the suppliers who have their products in supermarkets. All the weird, dodgy factories. They have all this weird processed food, for example, and many other examples as well. Weird stuff that you get in your food. They want to promote the supermarkets because then the supermarkets will get the right policies that will allow all this chemical nonsense to be promoted. Whereas if you have a small shop, more organic food, I don't know, it's just more natural and more local produce, they don't like that because there's no opportunity for them to profit from it. The problem is we have a bunch of idiots running the governments and states that just say, yes, sure, we'll listen to you. You need to have good people in governments and state to say, no, I'm not going to take this meeting. So you need to change the political culture first. So you need to have better people to tell the bureaucrats, I don't want to have that meeting. If Walmart wants to come alongside one or two small businesses from the same industry, then we'll listen to them. So we make sure there's a voice from all parts, all areas of the sector. Nima says, know anything about the shooting in France? I'm afraid I don't yet, actually. Thank you for letting me know. I'm going to keep an eye on that because there's so much happening at the same time every day, obviously. I'll talk to the team to find out what I have missed. Also, it's the weekend, so I'm just a little bit all over the place, focusing on family stuff as well. Anyway, we're going to, hopefully this was informative, and obviously share this with everyone that you know. I think people need to know more about these important issues. If you joined the live stream late, feel free to rewind back to the beginning because all the information is at the beginning of the show. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.